Picture a lioness. She is lying in the grass with her cubs, 3 of them, small enough to fit in your hands, eyes barely open, completely helpless. She grooms them. She feeds them. She has fought off hyenas, rival lions, and everything else the savannah threw at her to keep them alive. And then, without warning, she eats one, not out of confusion, not by accident, deliberately. If you have never heard this before, your brain is probably rejecting it right now. Lions are the ultimate symbol of fierce maternal protection. The lioness is one of the most celebrated mothers in the natural world, and she is also occasionally a filicide. But here is the thing, she is not alone. Leopards do it, tigers do it, pigs do it, primates do it, fish, birds, snakes, and insects do it. Infanticide and cannibalism of offspring has been documented across hundreds of species on every continent, which raises an obvious question. Making babies is the entire point of biological existence. Every living thing is driven at the most fundamental level to reproduce and pass on its genes. So eating those babies and the genes they carry should be the most self-defeating thing an animal can do. And yet it keeps happening everywhere, which means it is not self-defeating at all. Today we are going to find out exactly why. The human instinct, when we see an animal eat its young, is to call it a malfunction, a breakdown. Something went wrong in that animal's brain. That instinct is wrong. Self-defeating behaviors have a straightforward way of disappearing from nature. If eating your offspring reliably reduced your ability to pass on genes, the animals that did it would produce fewer surviving descendants than the ones that did not, and over generations, the behavior would simply die out. The fact that infanticide and filial cannibalism has persisted across hundreds of species over millions of years tells us something important. Under the right circumstances, it works. Not emotionally, not morally, mathematically. Nature does not operate on sentiment, it operates on survival math. And sometimes, in specific documented, repeatable circumstances, the survival math says eat the cub. There are 3 distinct biological reasons this happens. Each one is its own case. Each one follows its own logic. And all 3, once you understand them, make complete sense. The first reason is the one that applies most directly to big cats. And it is the coldest calculation in nature, resource management. A lioness raising cubs in the wild is operating under extreme constraints. She needs to hunt enough food for herself to produce milk. She needs territory. She needs safety. And all of those resources are finite. When a litter is too large for the available resources, the mother faces a mathematical problem. She can attempt to raise all of them, stretching her resources thin and risk losing the entire litter to starvation or weakness. Or she can reduce the litter to a size she can actually sustain, ensuring that the surviving cubs are well-fed, strong, and genuinely likely to reach adulthood. From a gene-passing perspective, 3 healthy cubs that survive to reproduce are worth infinitely more than 6 weakened cubs that all die. And when a cub is already sick, injured, or visibly weaker than its siblings, the calculus becomes even clearer. That cub is unlikely to survive regardless. Continuing to invest resources in it draws energy away from the healthy siblings. The calculus becomes even clearer. That cub is unlikely to survive regardless. Continuing to invest resources in it draws energy away from the healthy siblings. So the mother removes it, and in many documented cases, consumes it, recovering the caloric investment she already made. This is not cruelty. It is triage. The same cold logic that military medics apply on a battlefield, maximum survivors with available resources, applied at the level of a pride on the African savanna. Scientists have documented this in lions, leopards, and tigers. It correlates strongly with food scarcity, litter size, and cub health. It is not random. It is a response to specific environmental conditions. The most powerful mother in the animal kingdom is also its most ruthless accountant. The second reason is different, and in some ways even more striking, because it applies when the young are not weak at all. Sometimes a parent eats healthy offspring because those offspring are already doomed, and eating them is the only way to salvage anything from the investment. The long-tailed sun skink, a lizard found across parts of Asia, normally guards her eggs with genuine care. She stays close. She defends them. But when predators repeatedly threaten the nest, when it becomes clear that the eggs are going to be eaten no matter what she does, the mother skink does something that seems shocking at first glance. She eats her own eggs before the predator can get to them. Think about what that actually means biologically. Those eggs represent an enormous investment of energy. Producing them cost her resources she cannot get back. If a predator eats them, that investment is gone, and she gets nothing in return. But if she eats them herself, she recovers the calories. She gets her energy back. She restores her body's resources. And she becomes physically capable of reproducing again sooner, producing a new clutch of eggs in a safer location, under better circumstances. A doomed investment converted into a future opportunity. This same logic appears across species. Big cats have been documented abandoning or consuming cubs when the pride's territory has been overtaken, when prey has collapsed, or when the survival probability of the litter has dropped below a certain threshold. The behavior is triggered not by the health of the young, but by the viability of the environment. When the circumstances are already going to end in loss, the question becomes, how do you minimize that loss and maximize your chances of winning the next round? Sometimes the answer is to take back what you can and start again. The third reason is the one that shifts the story entirely, because it does not come from the mother at all. It comes from the male. When a new male lion takes over a pride, defeating the previous dominant male, one of the first things he does is kill the existing cubs. Not because they are a threat to him physically. Lion cubs cannot hurt an adult male. He kills them because of what their existence costs him reproductively. A lioness with nursing cubs will not come into estrus. She is not reproductively available. Her biology is entirely focused on the cubs she already has. Those cubs carry the genes of the male he just defeated. If he allows them to survive, he spends the next 2 years providing protection and resources for offspring that carry zero of his genetic material. He invests in his rival's legacy while producing none of his own. By killing those cubs, he ends the female's nursing cycle. She comes into estrus within weeks. He mates with her. And within months, the pride contains his cubs, his genes, being raised with his protection. It is one of the most brutal calculations in the animal kingdom, and it has been documented in lions, leopards, tigers, langur monkeys, bears, and dozens of other species. Researchers initially struggled to accept that this was an evolved strategy rather than a pathology. It seemed too extreme, too calculating for an animal, but the numbers confirmed it. Males that killed rival cubs reproduced significantly faster and left more surviving offspring than males that did not. The behavior was being selected for generation by generation because it worked. Nature does not reward restraint. It rewards offspring. So we have 3 cases, 3 completely different circumstances, 3 completely different animals. A lioness managing a litter she cannot afford to fully raise. A skink recovering a doomed investment. A male lion eliminating his competitor's genes to accelerate his own reproduction. They feel different on the surface, but they are all operating on the same underlying logic. Survival is not about this generation. It is about all future generations. Every decision an animal makes, consciously or not, is ultimately being evaluated by one question. Does this behavior increase or decrease the number of my genes that survive into the future? When the answer is yes, the behavior persists. When the answer is no, it disappears. Filial cannibalism has persisted because in specific circumstances, resource scarcity, doomed investment, reproductive competition, the survival math says it is the right move. The part that makes humans uncomfortable is not the act itself. It is what the act reveals. That the maternal bond, the thing we consider one of the most fundamental and sacred forces in nature, is not unconditional. It is conditional. It has thresholds. It has limits defined by biology, not by emotion. The lioness is not a monster. She is an optimizer. And the same evolutionary pressure that made her fierce enough to protect her cubs also made her calculating enough to eliminate them when the math demands it. Those are not 2 different instincts. They are the same instinct, pointed in different directions by different circumstances. Why do big cats sometimes eat their own cubs? Because making babies is not the goal. Passing on genes that survive is the goal. And sometimes those 2 things point in opposite directions. When resources are too scarce to raise the full litter, reducing it is the only way to ensure any of them survive. When the environment makes survival impossible, consuming the investment is the only way to fund the next attempt. When a rival's offspring occupy space that should belong to your own, eliminating them is the fastest route to reproduction. None of this is emotional. None of it is moral. It is the output of 4 billion years of evolution selecting for one thing and one thing only, the maximum number of your genes surviving into the future. The lioness lying in the grass with her cubs is not simply a mother. She is a survival machine running calculations we will never fully see. And the part that stays with you after you understand all the biology is this. The same fierce love that makes her charge a hyena twice her size to protect those cubs is operating on the exact same logic as the decision to remove one, protect what you can sustain, cut what you cannot, pass on what survives. That is not cruelty. That is 4 billion years of evolution distilled into a single moment in the African grass.